Richard Crouse.
Nick, how are you?
Hey, very well, Richard. How are you?
Good, thanks. Congratulations on the movie.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I saw it about a month ago now, and it's really stayed with me, man. I thought that the monsters were amazing. I thought the setting was incredible. I thought it was just a breath of fresh air.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, I think this is testament to, Joe Cornish's script and the fact that, between Joe and one of the casting directors, they found a great group of kids, and I think Joe really brought the best out of them.
Well, I know you and Joe were friends, but how exactly did you become involved in the project?
I've known Joe for as long as I've known Edgar, really, and I was a fan of his. He's part of a double act over here called Adam and Joe, and they're tremendously popular and successful. So I was always a fan of his stuff, and we became friends over the years. And then Joe brought his film and the script for his film to Big Talk, who is the company that Simon and Edgar and I and Naira Park, who produces all of our films, she is the boss of. So I was aware of it through Big Talk, and then Naira and Joe approached me to say that he had written a part for me in this film, and I just bit his hand off at the chance. I loved the script, and I loved what he'd written for me, and he said you can kind of improvise and do what you want, and I think it's always a real treat as an actor to have someone specifically write a character for you. I think it's very flattering, and so I was in.
Well, I kind of thought that this character sort of reminded me of Fagin a little bit, almost. You've got this one character, this one guy who's leading people, I guess, in the wrong direction in some ways, but he seems to have genuine affection for the people around him. Do you agree?
Yeah, I would, absolutely. Yeah, we kind of talked him being a cross between Fagin and Bruce Dern in Silent Running. He's kind of a horticulturalist, and I'm not sure Ron understands the gravity of, in fact, what he is doing.
Yeah. Well, he's an interesting character. The thing about the film is it's a very British, London-based film. How do you think that North American audiences will respond to it?
Well, I don't know. We're going to find out pretty soon. I think I've kind of heard this banded around that they were going to subtitle it and stuff like that. But I think it kind of, the American cinema going public are, they're a smart, savvy bunch, and people will either not see it because it's British, and those people are probably the same people who wouldn't have gone to see Run Lola Run or Amelie, or they will go and see it because they enjoy cinema. I don't think it matters that it's not in American. I think people are clever enough to. I was trying to think about the TV show The Wire.
Right.
I'm sure there are people in Toronto or Winnipeg or down in Texas who have to watch The Wire with the subtitles on as well.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's. I think once you know what people are talking about, and I think that's part of the fun of watching certainly for me, when I was a child, most of the films that I watched were American, and you didn't necessarily get the cultural specifics that everyone was talking about, but you made an effort and you worked to kind of work out what they were saying, and that certainly for me as a young cinema goer gave me a real buzz that I could understand what they were saying, and I knew what they were talking about. It kind of felt like I could speak a different language, and I think people will feel the same about Attack the Block, and they'll go away from the cinema understanding a little bit more about South London street culture,
Right, and I think that once the monsters come on, it doesn't matter about the accents.
Absolutely.
Or any of that stuff.
A monster is a monster in anyone's language.
Yeah, and there's such...
Unless it's a weird Japanese ghost monster, and then that's just a weird Japanese ghost monster.
Well, there's such great sort of thrills and chills here. Now, the monsters, to me, they weren't. I don't think there's very little computer animated stuff in this movie, from what I could tell. So, what were the monsters? Or can you tell me, were they people dressed up in suits, or what exactly were they?
I don't think there was any CG, really. I think that's kind of one of the beauties of having a fairly low-budget picture is, you can't perhaps use as much CG as people like to use. I'm just trying to think, should I give it away? It was people.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I want to, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it. So, but the mouths and the whole thing is it's an image that'll stay with you. Like the first time, that you saw the woman coming out of the TV in the ring. Like,
oh yeah,
the time that all these sort of iconic images from horror films that we've seen over the last 20, 30 years. I think these monsters will stay with you.
Yeah, good. I think Joe would be very, very pleased to hear that. It's one of the monsters is a guy that we met a few years ago when we were working on Tintin. A guy called Terry Notary, who was our movement coach, Simon Pegg and I's movement coach on Tintin, and Joe met him there, and so Joe got him over to London to be the movement, to be the monster. And I think Terry has now worked on Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I think he's one of the main apes in that. So he is a genius when it comes to movement and the movement of animals and creatures. So, yeah, I think he really helped it too.
Absolutely. Now, we're making it sound like it's just a full-on sort of space invasion horror film, which in some ways it is, but I think it also has a lot to say politically as well. I think it's also a comment on the sort of council estate, the state of council estates in London, and about how people live in them. Do you see it as a political film at all?
I don't know. I mean, it didn't feel like that when I was making it, I think, if anything, it's a kind of... I think it kind of tells us to avoid demonizing youth just because we don't understand it. I think people naturally so will look at the themes of Attack the Block and politicize it, and I guess that's for them, and that's for them to thrash out, but it didn't feel like that when we were making it.
Right. Now, I went on Facebook and Twitter. We were almost out of time here. I went on Facebook and Twitter just before we did this interview and said, any questions for Nick Frost? And I was kind of inundated with stuff. But someone here, K-Stu Angel, J-A-S, has asked me to ask you about the new movie Snow White and the Huntsman, which you've just been cast in. Can you tell us anything about that?
I don't think I should. It's not my gig. It's I'm very pleased that they've cast me. I'm going to be one of the dwarfs, and it's quite nice to be able to do a film that you're just acting in for once. That kind of pressures off a little bit in a way, which is fantastic. But I've seen a lot of the storyboards, and I've seen a lot of the costumes and the costume concepts, and I think it's going to be great. I think they're going to make it really dark and creepy and very gothic.
Well, I can't wait to see that. Attack the Block is fantastic. Another quick question here. Someone says, will you marry me? But, that's another request from Facebook.
Well, look, let's see how it goes. I mean, I'm married at this point, but you never say never.
Nick, thanks so much.
No worries. Have a good day.
I will. You too. Bye now.
Richard